I never thought I'd have the opportunity to play points against a top 50 tennis player. But after spending 2 days as Alexander Shevchenko's hitting partner, I got to see how my game would stack up against one of the world's best tennis players. Okay, so this was my fourth and final day of being a hitting partner at the Boodles exhibition event, and by day 4 it was really starting to sink in how crazy of an experience this was. As the event was starting to come to the end and I had to start thinking about going back to my normal life, going back coaching and playing in the tournaments that I'm playing, I really started to think how crazy it was to be able to play with and practice with all these pros at the highest level of the game, and I am beyond grateful for this experience. But let's focus on this session here. So this was my second session with Alexander Shevchenko, and we actually had a practice the day before, which was a super fun session where we did different movement drills and we played some points. And when he told me that this session here was going to be set up in a similar way, I was super excited, and he was kind enough to let me film the whole thing. So like most sessions, we started off with some rallies down the middle, and this angle's a really cool way to see the pace of the ball coming towards me and the reaction that it had off the ground. And I just had to make sure that I was moving my feet really well, taking small back swings and just trying to time the ball the best I could in the middle of the strings. We then quickly moved on to a movement-based exercise where I was going to be staying in the forehand corner, and he wanted me to hit 2 or 3 balls cross-court and then change up down the line so that he could get used to his movement moving over to his backhand side. And then after a few goes like this, we switched it up where I stayed going cross-court the whole time, and then he changed down the line, and sometimes he would just go for a winner down the line or try and play super aggressive, and then sometimes he'd do more of a rally ball where I'd get behind it and try and keep the rally going a little bit longer. Something that was a little bit different to Shevchenko compared to some of the other pros that I practiced with was the amount of backhands that he took from the middle of the court actually, which I found pretty interesting because during my coaching sessions and what we're kind of taught as coaches through the qualifications is to make sure players are dominant with their forehand in the middle of the court. And there's been a lot of studies done about how the player who hits more forehands within zone C on the court tends to win the match. But with Shevchenko, his backhand was a real weapon, and when he took his backhand from the middle of the court, he was able to get such good power and angle on it off the court that most players aren't able to get with their forehand. So a lot of times when the ball went slightly middle or when he changed direction and he was going cross-court with his backhand, he stepped in really early and then hit a really good sort of 3/4 angle with his backhand, moving me off the court with a lot of pace, which caught me out a lot of times as I was kind of used to playing against players who would take a couple extra steps to get the forehand around the ball. And of course he still does that with his forehand a lot of times, and he still has a big weapon with his forehand as well, as we can see in these clips here. But the ability to sometimes do it with his backhand and sometimes do it with his forehand, I think is a real weapon and something that I've never faced before. Alright, as we were coming to the end of this section of the practice, I knew that it was going to be time to play some points out of the hand from the back of the court, and this was the moment that I was most excited for, because it's not very often you get to see how your level compares to someone who's at the very top of the game. So this part of the session was basically no pressure for me, and basically seeing how many points I could win against someone who was a top 50 level. So the rules of this tiebreak were pretty simple. All you had to do was feed the ball in cross-court. The next ball had to come back cross-court, and then anything went. You could do whatever you wanted. You could volley, you could slice, you could do whatever, and you basically just had to do whatever you could to win the point. So my plan here was pretty simple. I just tried to get on top of the points as early as I could, because I knew that as soon as I got into defense, then his level would completely outweigh mine and I wouldn't be able to turn the points around and get back in the point. So whenever I had the opportunity to start attacking, I just wanted to try and take it straight away and just put a lot of pressure from the start of each point. This point here is a great example of how he has the ability to use that backhand from the middle of the court, using that inside-out backhand followed by the cross-court backhand, which is a pattern that I have never really faced in any points that I've played before. But somehow I was able to take control of this point and hit a winner forehand down the line, and somehow I am 4-1 up in this tiebreak. And it was at this moment where I thought I might actually be able to win a tiebreak out the hand against someone who's top 50 in the world. And just as I had this thought, I was quickly shown who was the person playing Grand Slams and who was the person who doesn't even have any ATP points. Let's just take a watch at how this tiebreak unfolded from here. Alright, so there we have it. After going 5-1 up, I was not able to win another point, and I could really feel the increase in level from that moment and how dominant Alexander Shevchenko was taking on those balls and putting pressure on me, and that was just such an incredible experience to have had. And after that tiebreak, he just warmed up a few serves, and then that was it for the session. And I just want to say how fortunate I feel to have been able to practice with all these guys, and especially this session here, being able to play points and put my level on the court and compare it to the very top of the game. It was such a special experience. And as it was the final day of being a hitting partner, I was actually able to go and watch some of the exhibition matches that were going on. So here's a few final clips from Alexander Shevchenko against Alexander Bublik. Hope you enjoy.